He did not kill her. Perhaps that would have been kinder. Instead, King Henry VIII chose a different cruelty. In the cold of winter, he recoiled from his new wife's touch. To him, she was a foul thing, like a rotting corpse crowned as Queen of England. And of Cleves was a young noblewoman thrust into Henry's brutal world. In life, she became his fourth wife, briefly a queen, then a discarded pawn. Her story matters because it exposes the savage whims of a tyrant king and the wrenching fate of a woman trapped by his desire and disgust. From the moment Anne arrived in England, an uneasy tension hung in the air. The marriage was meant to seal an alliance and bring Henry a new son. But behind the smiling masks of courtly welcome, a darker tale was already unfolding, one that would turn a hopeful bride into a humiliated outcast. England in 1540 was a kingdom on edge. Henry VIII had broken from the Catholic Church, isolating his realm and angering powerful enemies. He needed allies. Thomas Cromwell, the king's cunning minister, arranged a match with Anne's German family to secure a Protestant alliance against threats abroad. For Anne, leaving her home in Cleves was a leap into the unknown. She was raised modestly, sheltered from the treacherous intrigues of courts like Henry's. She spoke little English and knew nothing of the dangerous game she was about to play. In her naivete, she hoped to please her new lord. Henry had been widowed and restless. His third wife, Jane Seymour, died, giving him a precious son. Before Jane, Henry had cast aside one wife and executed another. The king's temper was legendary. Blood already stained his marital history. Now he sought a fourth queen, expecting beauty, obedience, and an heir. Reports of Anne's virtue and a painted portrait of her face stirred Henry's interest. The famed artist Hans Holbein captured her with gentle eyes and modest grace. Enchanted by this image, Henry agreed to the marriage before ever laying eyes on the woman herself. It was a fateful gamble. When Anne finally arrived in England, the king could not resist a cruel test. Henry loved pageantry and disguise, so he rushed ahead to meet her in the guise of a commoner. He hoped for a spark of romance, a spontaneous embrace or cry of love at first sight. Instead, Anne greeted the stranger with polite confusion. She did not know this burly man was her future husband. Henry's pride was pierced like a wound. Some say he even tried to steal a kiss, only to meet her baffled stare. He stormed away in humiliation, an ominous sign of what was to come, and tried to laugh off the awkward first meeting, unaware of the peril. She had done nothing wrong, yet already Henry felt deceived. Courtiers whispered that the king was disenchanted. Still, the wedding plans barreled forward. Henry was trapped by duty and politics, for now. As the wedding day neared, Henry searched desperately for escape. He convened his council in secret, probing for any legal pretext to stop this union. They seized upon a distant echo, Anne's old childhood betrothal to a European noble. Was she truly free to wed the king? The question hung like a death sentence over Anne's head. Under pressure, Anne swore that she was not bound to any other man. There was no true impediment. She was innocent. With no honorable way out, Henry VIII grudgingly proceeded to marry the woman he already despised. But this was not enough to seal her fate, until one act changed everything. On a bitter January morning, Anne of Cleves became Queen of England. She stood beside Henry at the altar, resplendent in cloth of gold, but inside she quaked with uncertainty. The king's jaw was set in a hard line throughout the vows. That night, a terrible silence fell in the royal bedchamber. Behind heavy curtains, Henry approached his new bride in darkness, and could smell the sour scent of wine on his breath and something far worse, the fetid odor from the ulcer on his leg, a stench of rotting flesh. She lay rigid as Henry climbed onto the bed, his weight pressing down like a crushing stone. Henry reached out with a callous hand, touching Anne's body with obvious disdain. He pawed at her belly and breasts, then recoiled as if scalded. A sneer curled on his lips. In that moment, he declared her repulsive. The whispers later said he found her body slack, her beauty lacking, her very presence revolting. Humiliated and frightened, and remained still as Henry cursed under his breath. The king, nearly twice her age and swollen with gluttony, failed to perform his husbandly duty. Yet he blamed, and for his own impotence. Before dawn, he fled the bed, leaving the young queen untouched and in tears. But that was just the beginning. In the days that followed, Henry paraded a cold courtesy in public, but his disgust for and only grew in private. He complained to his closest men that his bride had a foul, repulsive odor, that being near her sickened him, and heard these cruel rumors echo through the stone halls and felt her cheeks burn with shame. Each night, Henry pointedly stayed away from the queen's chambers, and dined alone, slept alone, and wept quietly where no one could see. Her ladies offered scant comfort. They too feared the king's wrath every morning and wondered if this day would bring accusation, disgrace, or even a knock at her door with orders for her arrest. Henry's insults escalated. He even questioned Anne's virginity, hissing that her body did not feel like a maid's. The accusation was outrageous and baseless, yet it spread through court like blood in water. The king needed a justification for his hatred, and so he painted his innocent wife as a deceitful impostor, and was trapped in a nightmare. She had no family in England, no allies at court except the very man who brought her here, Cromwell, now falling out of favor. She knew of Henry's past queens, one banished in exile, another executed on false charges. The acts that ended in Boleyn's life still loomed in her mind. And then came the final blow. One summer morning, and received a message. The king wanted an annulment. She was to be cast aside, stripped of her crown, and must agree it was her choice. Anne's heart pounded as she read the words. Refusal meant danger. Compliance meant disgrace. In that fraught moment, she saw the path to survival and took it. In July 1540, their marriage of 6 months was erased as if it never happened. Henry declared that it had never been consummated and had been pre-contracted elsewhere, convenient lies to save face. And if Cleves relinquished her title as queen, publicly, she accepted her fate with a forced, gracious smile, but inside she felt hollow. The court watched this drama with bated breath. Some pitted Anne's humiliation, others secretly sighed in relief. England would be spared another scandalous public trial, at least for now. Henry himself wasted no time. On the very day the annulment was finalized, he took a new teenage bride, Catherine Howard, and, now called the king's beloved sister instead of wife, could only watch as the ruthless pageant continued. Yet Henry's fury had not been fully sated. He turned on the architect of this ill-fated marriage, Thomas Cromwell, who now paid the ultimate price. Within days, the once trusted minister was arrested, chained, and dragged to the Tower of London. In a gruesome spectacle of royal wrath, the once powerful minister was beheaded before a jeering crowd. The executioner's sword hacked clumsily, requiring multiple blows to sever Cromwell's neck. Blood soaked the scaffold, Henry's unspoken warning to anyone who crossed him, and learned of Cromwell's horrific end with a shudder. She knew it could easily have been hers. The shadow of the executioner hung over every Tudor courtier, every wife who displeased the king, by yielding without protest and had escaped that blade. But her freedom came at the cost of pride and honor. No longer a queen, and retreated into the quiet life Henry allowed her. He granted her manners and a generous income, a consolation prize for her obedience. In public, she bowed to Catherine Howard and later to Henry's sixth wife as if nothing had happened. But behind closed doors, and of Cleves bore the invisible scars of rejection and fear. The years passed, and the once young and faded from the center of power. She watched from afar as King Henry's fifth wife lost her head for infidelity, as the tyrant king continued his reign of terror, and herself outlived Henry VIII, surviving to see his 3 children take the throne in turn. She died in 1557, far from her homeland, remembered kindly as the one wife who kept her life and perhaps her dignity in the end. History asks whether and if Cleves was lucky or merely a different kind of victim. She escaped the axe, but endured a slow, living punishment, the scorn of a king and a lifetime defined by a marriage that lasted half a year. Hers is a tale of injustice and survival in an age of misogyny. And story forces us to confront the brutal whims of unchecked power. She was judged not for any misdeed, but for failing to please a tyrant's eye. In a world that treated queens as disposable, and if Cleves found a way to survive the unsurvivable. Yet the emotional wounds she suffered are a silent testament to the cruelty she endured. Would you have had the strength to endure what it did? Faced with a monarch's loathing and the threat of death, she bowed her head and persevered. Her dignity was bruised, but not broken. Her fate invites us to ponder the price of survival under oppression and the resilience it takes to outlast a despot's wrath. Thank you for immersing yourself in this dark chapter of Tudor history. How does and of Cleves's ordeal make you feel about the cost of power and pride? Let us know your thoughts and reflections on her story. If you found this tale chilling, stay tuned for our next journey into history's shadows. If you thought this was horrifying, wait until you hear about the man whose intestines were pulled out. Until next time.